Hello and welcome. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, and wherever you're joining us from. It's Wednesday. Let's light them up Wednesday. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedules, joining us today for another inspiring and enlightening show with a very dear friend and a special guest that we had on the show before. It's been a couple of years. Tony, we just met each other in Vegas at the trade show. It's always a pleasure to see you. But I'm so grateful to have you back at the Light 'em Up Lounge. Last time we had father and son in tandem. I still fondly remember the first show that we did together a couple of years ago, and here we are in 2023 with lots of important things and news and updates to talk about, both regarding Flora Dominicana and the family, but also the premium cigar industry in general. So without further ado, Tony Gomez from Flora Dominicana joining us live here. Thank you so much for taking the time and welcome to Light 'em Up.
Thanks for having me again, my friend. It's a pleasure to be back. And, I'll always come on your show, brother. You do a fantastic job. You've got something special going. So for me, it's an absolute pleasure, man.
Thank you very much. It's greatly appreciated and certainly means a lot. You know, it's been going on. Light 'em Up has been going on for plenty of time now, a couple of years, ever since the very early days of the pandemic. And this group here, all the people joining us on a weekly basis, and all the new ones still joining from all over, from Asia, the Middle East, Africa, Europe, the US, and Middle and South America. It's a true testament, I think, to the cigar world, the love and appreciation that we all have for this unique handmade piece of magic and thing of magic that brings everybody together. So yeah, well, thank you for the warm words, and a warm welcome to everybody watching and joining us today. If you have questions, as always, please make yourselves heard. Put your thoughts into the comments. If you're watching on Facebook, I'm always checking the live streams, and I would love to share and forward your questions with Tony. And for you, ladies and gents here at the lounge, you know the spiel. Your old friends, family, and regulars. So make yourselves heard, and please chime in. It's a pleasure to have you. So, Tony, without getting into all the LaFleur related stuff specifically, let's talk about the joyful elephant in the room, and that is the fantastic news that we had just end of last week regarding Judge Mehta's rule and the relief for the premium cigar industry, now firmly on paper and in the legal, system, or in that legal process, if you will. And you, in many different ways, and your family and the company have always played a significant role in the fight for the rights of premium cigar enthusiasts, manufacturers, and all the people in this ecosystem. So first and foremost, for me personally, and I hope I can speak on behalf of the cigar community, a massive thank you for your continuous support and for all the hard work, and also the financial support that you have presented the CRA and all the involved organizations with, your personal involvement. And I also have to congratulate you and also send you sincerest regards from Mike Copperman for you joining the CRA as the newest member of the board. So that upfront, congratulations, thank you, and what a joyful and important news day it was for the premium cigar industry. What's your thoughts on all of this, and what can you share from your perspective and from LaFleur with us about that incredible update and piece of news that we heard last week?
Well, I mean, listen, it's and I see Harrison's here. It's what happened is a true testament to the unbelievable and like relentless effort of CRA, Cigar Rights of America, in pursuing this, and in pursuing something that a lot of people, and it's only natural to get a little bit pessimistic, but you think tobacco doesn't win cases. Tobacco is the easy target for the government. If they need a little more money, they need what, you go after tobacco and nobody's going to defend it, Um, and the fact that, Cigarri was able to pull this off it's unbelievable, and in such a convincing fashion. This was huge. This is bigger than I ever thought. Um, this would end. I never quite saw it ending like this, but yeah, like you said, my father is one of the original founding members in CRA, and LFD has always been one of the biggest supporters of CRA. It's always been extremely important to us, and so we couldn't be happier. And like you said, I just got elected to the board like a month ago, and then we already won. So, so I missed all the good parts of the battle. But rest assured, there will be more. There will be more. So we have to keep our heads on, and we gotta keep looking forward, because the fight's never gonna end.
Certainly, yeah. And I mean, this is definitely a ray of light, primarily for the United States and the US cigar enthusiasts and consumers. And I'm a little doubtful that positive news on the regulatory front will show the same dynamic and evolution as negative news that have a certain tendency to spread like a wildfire or a crazy virus, where if some weird shit plops up somewhere, then I'm sure plenty of international countries will follow suit and at some point adapt those regulations. However, it's to be seen if Judge Mehta's rule can have an impact on international markets as well and serve as a positive precedent and role model. And I think where the really important win is in that rule is the clear distinction between a handmade premium cigar and other tobacco products, and to have a judge officially recognize that and put it out there publicly. And if that could serve as a strain of thought or some inspiration for other international regulatory entities and bodies, then I think it's a big step forward. How do you see that in the US and the international markets and the dynamics in between?
Well, you touched on a good point there, that the negative things seem to garner more attention than the positive. We deal with governments that the strategy is kind of regulate first, ask questions later. They just know they want to regulate, and it's like what we saw in the U.S. and they don't even know what step two is, or what even means to regulate cigars in certain senses. So it's a difficult battle to fight, because you're not battling against a logical argument, right? The argument against premium cigars is a totally illogical argument. They say that children smoke. Well, no, they don't. We have proof that they don't. They say that it's going to kill you. It doesn't. We also have proof that it doesn't. So just it's a hateful it's hate. It's not logic that's driving our opponents in this, and it's just the desire of that's what government does, man. They take and they take. They rarely, if ever, give back. It's what they do. You have people in these regulatory agencies who are, making good money, and they need to justify their salaries. So what do? They come up with new shit, and they come up with new shit to do, new industries to bother, new ways to do it. And so, unfortunately, it's a difficult battle. I'm not sure that. I mean, hopefully it will, but I'm not sure that what happened here is going to motivate any regulatory agencies in Europe to change anything. But it could motivate those on our side in Europe. I know there's a Cigar Rights of Europe and all that. So, this is something that they can use, to motivate themselves to keep the fight, because it's possible. We just showed that it is possible to win these. It might be a little more difficult in Europe. I know it's the whole landscape of things out there is very different. I know there's countries where you're not even allowed to lobby. If you're in the tobacco industry, you're not allowed to talk to politicians about it. So, which is extremely unfair, but that's what we're dealing with, right? But it's huge, and it's motivation for everybody, man. Why not?
Yeah, no, I'm completely with you. Where do you see your responsibility and the contribution that you can make as a board member of the CRA, as a newly appointed board member to the CRA, and where do you feel, especially in light of what just happened last week, where do you see your role and the contribution that you can make there?
We'll see. We'll see. I'm new to this. I just joined, so I like to in a situation like this, I like to kind of hang back and listen and watch and see what's going on and learn. And once I feel a little more comfortable, then I might start adding my 2 cents a little more. But right now, I'm just getting my feet wet, and I want to learn. I want to understand exactly what I'm doing. So we'll see. Time will tell what my contributions might be in the future.
Got you. Well, let's talk about your contribution and your obligations with the family company then. As important as the regulatory front is, I know it can be slightly tiring or tiresome and repetitive for some people, even though I want to reassure and send a message to everybody out there watching us live now or rewatching this. What happened last week is an important win, one that wouldn't be possible without the incredible effort of people like Tony, his family, and so many other people involved in the premium cigar industry, but also, and probably most importantly, people like us, like you, enthusiasts, people who enjoy premium cigars. And we can never take it for granted that we can continue enjoying this magnificent product. So even if you think it has nothing to do with you and there's barely anything you can do, you can make a difference. So get yourselves involved, sign up to the CRA, to Cigar Rights of Europe, Cigar Rights of Austria, Cigar Rights of the world, you name it, but get involved and never underestimate the contribution you can make and the power that your voice and your signature or your efforts in joining the organizations, most of which are free anyways, or you can buy a sampler pack so you get some crazy good cigars with it as well. Please get involved, and we should never take any of this for granted. And there's a sign of hope and a ray of light. So let's make sure there's plenty more of these and that we can continue enjoying handmade premium cigars. So that's just a most heartfelt and personal message from me to the world. Please get involved. And
Lightheart, you're absolutely right there, and I wanted to expand on that a little bit. This doesn't mean that it's over. Okay,
yeah.
this means we won a battle, but this is never going to end. The government's never just going to leave tobacco alone. So now is more important than ever for people to really get involved, right? And it's something as simple as buying one of the CRA packs. Like you said, you get amazing, very hard to find, spectacular cigars by some of the best manufacturers in the world. And something as simple as that is a contribution. And this is the moment for CRA to kind of start building up its war chest a little bit, so that we're more prepared than ever for whatever battles come in the future, which there will be more. So it's more important now than ever to really get people involved and let's be ready. Let's be ready to go next time.
Tony, since we already spoke about the international tendencies, just very briefly, La Flora Dominicana clearly is one of the truly global success stories of the premium cigar industry, and one of the premium cigar brands that you will find very well distributed in the international markets as well, and having established itself as a true household name and a true classic of the industry. Obviously, what your father started to build and has built together with your mother, and now with you and your brother involved is outstanding and has to be applauded. And I know you take care of most of the international markets, if not all of them. What's your current feeling about some of the dynamics that we're seeing in the premium cigar world? Obviously, the US market saw a tremendous increase in enthusiasm and demand from the consumer side, and the same in the international markets over the last couple of years. Yet both of them for different reasons and panning out differently. But in general, I think we can all attest that the industry is in a good shape, it's healthy, and there's more and more people interested in premium cigars. So, what are some of the tendencies that you see in the United States and internationally? How are they different, and how do you try to play those different territories as a brand?
Well, one thing I'm seeing on all ends is that everybody wants more cigars than we can give them, which I guess is a good problem to have. But yeah, like you said, demand and enthusiasm and everything for premium cigars has gone through the roof. And I think today's consumer is by far more educated than ever before. I mean, people know what they're smoking, they know what's in it, they know how it's made, they've seen the factories, they've been everywhere, just the fact that all you gents are here live, hanging out with me and listening to me talk about cigars in the industry. This has never been seen before, right? So we have a very, very educated level of consumer now, and they want the good stuff, man. They know exactly what they want, and we're seeing that all over the world. So yeah, in the U.S., the boom. For whatever the reason, well, there's a lot of reasons, but COVID caused a huge boom in demand. Europe, the same thing happened in Europe, but we've had some new developments in Europe with the whole situation with Habanos and the Cubans and all that. And for example, last year at Intertabac, we always have distributors from new countries approaching us, trying to get something going, and they want to bring in LFD. You have guys that come and say, I want to bring in LFD. I love Flora. This is a brand I want to have in my portfolio. Whereas last year, it was guys just going to booths and saying, I need brands. It wasn't, I need LFD. It's, I just need brands, and, you have guys that distributed only Cubans for decades, only imported Cubans for decades, are now looking to grab anything they can from Dominican Republic and Nicaragua. And it's a very fast shift. What's happening internationally? It's not just Europe; it's Middle East. It's all over the place. So it's interesting times. It's a great time on the manufacturing side, of course. We're in a situation where we can't meet the demand. Everything we make is essentially sold, and that's a good problem. It's a problem nonetheless. We want to keep everybody happy, but quality is number one, right? So we only make what we can make, and we don't make another cigar. And we're trying our best to expand, but that's a slow process. It takes time. We can't do that overnight. Even if the demand doubles overnight, there's nothing we could do about that. But yeah, the cigar world is changing. It's growing, and the enthusiasm is unlike it's ever been.
Tony, interestingly enough, I think that the first point that we discussed and the whole CRA, Judge Mehta, and the recent win topic kind of plays into that as well. Let me explain. I think that a few months ago, most manufacturers were probably hesitant to give their prediction about how the US market will evolve or what's going to happen if substantial equivalence and the whole pre-market approval aspect were to come into effect at some point. Could you still create a new brand or come up with new lines if they weren't grandfathered? So all that uncertainty probably made it more appealing or more interesting and obvious for manufacturers that have their main foothold in the US to think about the international markets as a backup plan should shit hit the fan in the US. Now that is gone, or at least postponed for at least a couple of years. Do you think, from a strategic perspective, that will slow down manufacturers' efforts in the international markets? Or do you still think that, given the dynamic and the incredible interest from international markets, and of course, as you have said, all the struggles with Habanos, where there's no product, and if so, it's crazy expensive, people will still be looking for the international markets. And just as an add-on, to be clear for all the people watching, maybe you can elaborate on that. And I'm not asking about any confidential information, but I guess percentage-wise, what goes into the US and what goes internationally, the internationals are a tiny proportion of the overall production, right?
Yeah, yeah, of course. And the United States is I mean, when it comes to consuming things, right? Who's better than the United States, right? So the United States most definitely consumes more cigars than any one country. You know, I don't think it's even close. Um, but no, it's not going to shift our focus. You know, we've wanted to grow internationally because, you know, it. Listen, you have a brand that you've built over all this time, and you know the fact that you know your brand is it's in London, it's in Paris, it's in Dubai, it's in, you know, it's in all, you want them to be in these places, you know, and you know, you want to expose your work to the world, right? And you want people traveling around the world to see that you're a global brand, right? They want to understand, you want them to understand, you know, this is what you've built, right? And it adds to the prestige of your brand and what you've accomplished, you know. So no, it doesn't change anything. And you know, at the end of the day, you know, Cubans have been illegal in the United States for, you know, many decades. The United States is still probably the biggest consumer of Cuban cigars in the world. So one way or another, the cigars find their way in. So, you know, I never planned to stop making new things. You know, I just figured they would come in through some kind of back channels or whatever it might be. But I'm never going to stop making new stuff, you know.
And in regards to the proportions or how much weight and emphasis you put on the international markets, of course, not speaking for anybody else, or as I said, sharing confidential information, but do you slowly and steadily see that number increasing, or the amount of stuff that goes into the international markets?
Oh, absolutely. Over the last decade, it's increased significantly. And you know, the percentage of international versus American, although still very heavily skewed to the United States, it has shifted. It's shifted a lot. Uh, and it could shift a lot more, you know, if we allowed it to. You know, if I fulfilled every international order 100% as ordered, you know, the number would change drastically. Now, you know, at the end of the day, the United States market has always been the most important. It's our first market, you know, our first supporters, you know, our history is based in, you know, founded in the United States as a brand. So we have a lot of very important retailers there to us that, you know, we have to take care of certain people, you know. But yeah, it's changed a lot. In the last decade, last 10 years, we've seen a drastic shift.
How sustainable or healthy do you think the growth of the last years has been? Because there was a lot of debate, particularly at the tail end of the COVID-19 pandemic, where people were curious, you know, is it just people being stuck at home, working from home, now smoking 3 cigars a day instead of one, or 1 cigar a day instead of one a week? Other people would argue, you know, there was an increase of new consumers coming into the market. With your ear on the ground and your finger on the pulse, where do you think the growth is coming from now? And do you think it'll continue on that trajectory? Or are we hitting a certain plateau? Or, well, I guess we have already in the US, but how do you think that's going to unfold over the next couple of months?
Well, it was certainly a mix of both things, right? So yeah, like you said, people had more time on their hands, and you know, so maybe they smoked more cigars than they usually would. They weren't in the office, they were at home, whatever it might be. But also, there was a lot of people at home with expendable cash and nothing to do, so they looked for new hobbies, you know. And you know, what better way to pass the time than a cigar, right? So it
Yeah.
created a lot of new smokers. 100% it did. And you know, the existing smokers might have been smoking a little more. Um, you know, it was a drastic boom, and you know, it tapered off, and you know, kind of we found our new level, you know, which is, you know, much higher than it was pre-COVID. Maybe
Yeah.
not as high as it was during the peak of the boom, but Whether or not it's sustainable, that's up to the manufacturers. There was a similar, the cigar boom in the 90s in the United States, the famous cigar boom, um, was a great thing for the cigar business. It was also a terrible thing for the cigar business, right? Because a lot of money hungry people flooded Dominican Republic and, and probably Nicaragua too, opening factories overnight. And, people had no idea what they were doing and just pumping out crap, because retailers were buying anything because they just needed cigars. There was such a strong demand that anything would sell, you know? And so a lot of bad cigars hit the market, and there's probably a lot of manufacturers that maybe started taking shortcuts on their quality standards, whatever it might be. And and it just in order to meet that demand, make the money, and quality dropped on cigars. So it probably ended up turning a lot of people away from cigars because the quality of the product maybe wasn't that great. We're in a position now as an industry where, the best cigars that have ever been made in the history of the world are being made right now, in the Dominican Republic, in Nicaragua, Honduras. The quality of cigars has never been anywhere near as good as it is now. And I think we've learned our lessons from the original cigar boom. I don't foresee that happening again. We certainly don't plan to push ourselves beyond what we're capable of just to meet the demand. And if we have cigars on back order, it is what it is, man. We can only make what we can make, and if the cigars aren't good, we're not selling them.
And the interesting thing is, especially for the Flora Dominicana, you've been on the market for such a long time. You have established true classics and certain lines and cigars that have stood the test of time and that people will come back to. At the same time, you very successfully managed to, over the last years, kind of get a lot of renewed interest around the brand, with you being so active in creating new stuff, bringing in different inspirations and influences. Lido Jr. With the launch of Solis, right? Now having a much bigger role in the family business as well. So there's always stuff going on with La Flor, which is exciting. What are some of the things that truly kind of sparked your interest recently, and what are some of the things that you're most proud of?
Inspiration is a funny thing, man. It when you're looking for it, it doesn't show up, and when you're not, it pops up out of nowhere. And that's all the best ideas, at least the ones that I've ever had, just pop up. I've never had a great idea trying to come up with one. They come out. Maybe you're closing your eyes at night to go to bed, and that's when it hits you, or you just see something, and then it's like a split moment thing, and an idea pops in your head. So you just always have to be paying attention. You have to be aware of your thoughts, and you got to be ready for it whenever it does come. And to me, that's the funnest part of all this. I love to create. That's what drives me. That's what really motivates me. I have a lot of functions within the company, but that's what I really love. I love the creative process, and I love being a part of that. Watching something go from this little seed inside of your head to now it's displayed, and it's in London, and it's in all over the world, and that's fucking cool. That's what I love the most. So and that's part of the ethos of LFD and La Flor Dominicana, right? Just the fact that LFD was this really crazy idea that my father had 30 years ago, right? It didn't make any sense. This shouldn't have worked, but somehow he pulled it off. My father's like this miracle worker, and he made this happen somehow. And we had no family history in cigars. His father had never smoked a cigar, probably his grandfather. There's no history in it, right? So we never had to follow, the tradition set forth by, my grandfather. Great, LFD started with a clean slate, and my father himself is a very creative guy, and the LFD has just always been different. We've always done different things, different shapes, sizes. We've always been uniquely ourselves, and I think that's the coolest part of LFD. If I were on the other side, just as a smoker, I would love LFD as a brand. It would be a brand that I'd be attracted to. And so that's kind of my mentality. That's, I always think of uh, what would I like if I were a consumer, what would attract me? And that's what I always try to go for, and I kind of went off on a tangent. I forget the rest of the question now. So
No, that's
remind me.
that's beautiful. How do you foster that as a culture though? Because LFD is a big operation. It's not just the Gomez family, even though as a family operation, it's probably much easier to nurture that culture and make sure it translates perfectly into the rest of your staff and then to the outside world. But how do you feel you can nurture that plant? Also, for example, with Lido Junior now being more heavily involved, how do you make sure that everybody's sort of marching in that same direction and at the same pace?
Well, it starts at the top, obviously. My father has set a standard. He's created something by strictly adhering to that standard, right? So quality first. That's all that matters. The only thing that matters at the end of the day is the quality of the product you're making. And then as long as that's taken care of, then it's just about having fun. We're just doing what we like to do. Like, I've always got ideas. My dad has always got some crazy scheme or something he's trying to come up with. So it's we just like to do it. It's just, it kind of just it's natural. So it's not we're specifically trying to foster anything. It just so happens that you know we just like to we have fun doing it. We have fun creating things and coming up with ideas, and we're always back and forth, ping ponging different ideas and bouncing things off each other's heads. And when we agree on something, okay, we both like that and we go for it, and that's it. It's just fun, man.
That's the way it should be, I guess. And as long as well, I love the fact, and I have to applaud you on that. When you mention you look at the company as if it were from the outside, and then you think, is this a company that I personally, as a cigar lover, would love to do business with or purchase cigars from? And I think that's a beautiful thought and a humble one, where you always put the consumer and the people first, and you think about how can we serve better and what can we do to get people excited and loving our stuff, even though there's also this element of fulfilling your own dreams and visions, and finding that balance between creating cigars that you would love but then also that the consumer would love. And I can only imagine that's not always easy to juggle and to find the balance between, here's your own thoughts and your world, but here's the market, and that's what the consumer is yearning for.
I think at the end of the day, as a manufacturer, you have to see yourself as a consumer, right? The way we see it here is, my father and I were the first consumer of LFD, right? Anything new we do, or whatever we're doing, we're the first consumer. So we have to like it. If we don't like it, then why would you expect anybody else to like it, right? So you have to see yourself that way. You're the first consumer of the brand, and you have to like what you're doing. You have to please yourself, right?
Excellent point. The NFT was a concept that truly struck a lot of people and created a lot of buzz and noise in the industry. We spoke briefly about it with Jonathan Carney when he was here on the show, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on the whole concept, but then also some of the recent updates as to how it's going, how people are reacting to it, and do you think that's a bit of a trend or a phase and something that comes and goes like other trends, or do you think that will have a substantial impact on the industry on a larger scale, or will become a concept that is more readily adopted in the years to come?
Um, well, so the whole NFT thing, was very much in the spirit of LFD. Like I said before, the LFD itself was a crazy, possibly even kind of stupid idea in the beginning. And the NFT was also, it was kind of there. It was crazy. It was just crazy enough to work. But I always thought, man, this is either going to be brilliant or it's going to be the dumbest idea ever, you know. And I remember, you know, a couple weeks before the 2 weeks before we launched it, I couldn't sleep. I would lay in bed for 2 3 hours every night, like just staring at the ceiling, thinking to myself, like, what have I gotten myself into? This is so dumb. Nobody's gonna buy this. Why am I doing this? You know, like, I wish I could just like cancel it, but you know, we went too deep. Can't. We got to go. You know, you just have to believe in it and go for it. But yeah, it was a crazy little idea, and it worked because it was just it was the perfect cigar at the perfect time. You know, it's not something I would ever do just to do it. You know, I did it because you know, we had this cigar that was just like something told me it was just born for this. Like this cigar existed for this purpose. You know, I had been making it for a couple of years, just as kind of a personal cigar with the intention of releasing it eventually. I just didn't know how because I wanted to do something unique with it. I didn't know what I wanted to do. Um, and this idea just popped up out of nowhere. And, you know, I just looked at the cigar and it was kind of like a moment of like, all right, this is like destiny or something. I don't know, but this has to work, you know? Um, so we went for it, and thankfully it worked out. It exceeded my expectations by a lot. And as for whether or not it will become a trend, I think we've already seen a couple similar projects announced. Um, well, I'm excited to see, you know, how those goes, you know, how they go, and I'm very excited this time to like just sit back and watch with no pressure, you know, and no stress. I'm gonna sit back and enjoy and watch the auctions and see how it goes because you know the one Tatuaje is doing, I think it's very well done. It's beautiful. Everything, you know, the artwork and the packaging, everything it's done is absolutely beautiful. So we'll see how it goes. I think I've seen another one announced as well. Um, so I guess maybe it is a bit of a trend at this point. Whether or not it's a successful trend, I guess time will tell. You know, maybe we meet again next year and then we'll have an answer for that.
For you personally, Tony, NFTs, a blockchain, AI, digitalization in general, is that something that you're heavily into or that comes easily and naturally for you? Or do you gravitate to more towards like the old school and the traditional stuff? Because for me, for example, even though I've been hosting an online show or a virtual program for a couple of years, I'm like a dinosaur, you know. For me, all these things here, it's challenging, and I'm an old soul in a young body. I used to say that's what I love about the cigar industry as well. You know, it's tradition, it's craftsmanship, it's one of the last remaining handmade products, truly handmade products. Yet, you know, it's the reality of the world we live in that we all have to deal with things like AI, and it'll have a massive impact on our lives. So how do you think about that on a personal level?
I'm into it, man. I love all that stuff. You know, I read a lot of Reddit. You know, I'm always keeping up with what's going on. You know, I'm into it. I'm fascinated by technology and the places that it's going to go. I'm a little scared of it. You know, and I might not totally understand it. You know, I listen. I could sit on the couch at night and watch 2 hours of YouTube videos on quantum physics, and I have no idea what's going on, but I just love it. You know, it's just fascinating to me. So the same thing with you know, AI, all these things. I don't quite understand it. I don't know if anybody actually does, but it's fascinating, and I want to know where it's going. You know, and I want to keep my finger on the pulse, and I want to understand the this new world that's around the corner, man. I think you know, 5 years, 10 years, the world's going to look a lot different than it does today, and it's going to happen very, very fast. You know, so we need to be paying attention.
How much of that do you see coming into and changing the premium cigar industry? Because
Well,
it
that's the beautiful
sometimes
thing.
feels like, you know, we're still sending each other faxes with orders and working in the 20th century. But as I said, it's the charming side of the industry as well as some of its downfalls or hurdles. How do you think that's
Sure.
going to pan out?
I mean, that's the beautiful thing about cigars, right? You know, cigars today are made the same way they were made 300 years ago. Nothing has really changed. Fermentation is fermentation. There's nothing you can really do to speed it up. Sorting and rolling, it has to be done by hand. There's never going to be a machine that does any of these things. It doesn't make sense. I don't foresee a machine ever have being able to actually do that, nor do I ever see it being really something that would make sense for somebody to invest in and create a machine that would sort premium tobacco, right? Um, it's just not going to happen. Cigars are always going to be made the same way, and that's something I absolutely love about what we're doing, right? Um, as for how it's going to affect the industry, I think we're pretty safe. I think our jobs are pretty safe. You know, I think the cigar industry will be relatively unaffected by a lot of this, as it has been by technology in general. You know, and now our inventory, it's digitized. You know, things like that. You know, maybe people might start using AI designers to create brands for them or labels or whatever, things like that. But at the end of the day, there's only one way to make a cigar, you know, and none of that's going to change. It might, you know, help you write press releases and might help you develop a sales strategy, you know, something like that. But at the end of the day, cigar has to be good. And the only way to make a good cigar is to make it right. And that's it, man.
Another dynamic that we have discovered and experienced over the last couple of months is certainly the the price range, and also necessarily so, I guess, the acceptance for certain price levels has increased. And when I mean necessarily so accepted for the consumers, I guess what used to be that $5 to $7 cigar now is more like the $8 to $10 cigar, and what used to be the 10 to 12 range is probably around 15. And you could, you know, take that further up the ladder. Um, at the same time, we have seen at the trade show and around lots of brands introducing cigars at a very, very high price point. Um, do you think the consumer is open to that idea in general, or are some of the manufacturers probably trying too hard to either milk that cow because it's already there, or jump on a bandwagon of a price increase that was probably really pushed and really put on another level by Habanos and the way they changed their price structure?
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, you know, at the end of the day, cigars have followed the trend of essentially everything, right? The price for everything has gone up and it continues to go up. You know, inflation has kind of run rampant lately. Supply chains, the whole global supply chain is, you know, everything's more expensive to do. It's more expensive to ship. You know, salaries are going up, wages are going up in the Dominican Republic, price of wood, you know, everything's more expensive to make at this point. So, you know, prices do have to go up. And, you know, cigars have steadily increased in price. Um, over the years, they always have, right? Now, what you're referring to, I know what you're referring to. Now there's cigars coming out at very exuberant price points. And listen, at the end of the day, you know, I'm a pretty firm believer in free market capitalism, right? And if a consumer sees the value in something, well, then that's what it's worth, right? If people are willing to pay for it, you know, for example, you take the NFT, right? Um, you know, the NFT owners made a substantial investment into that NFT, right? And you know, it's mind-boggling to me, and I can't believe what I'm seeing. But you know, these cigars, they're retailing for $200 a cigar. You know, and people are and they're selling out. You know, it's not like they're just readily available all the time. These cigars are selling out. People are paying a lot of money for them. And you know, we didn't set the $200 price point. You know, at that point, it's up to the retailers, the people who invested in their NFT to decide what it's going to retail for. Then it's up to the consumers to decide whether or not it's worth it to them. But value is a totally subjective thing. If the consumer sees the value and believes that this is worth what it's worth, then you know that's what it's worth, man. You know, if somebody wants to buy a $500 cigar, then that's what it's worth. You know, sure, maybe it's not for everybody, but you know that's what it is. There's different consumers, maybe with different financial levels, and people decide what things are worth to them.
Excellent point. You also mentioned the prices that have gone up for everything from raw material to, in particular, labor costs. How's the situation in the Dominican Republic at the moment? We know that Nicaragua, Cuba, many countries have had the issue of a severe brain drain, and lots of people trying to leave the country, and in particular for the cigar industry, plenty of rollers or skilled people at the factory level, looking for alternatives and different paths in life. How do you see that from your or through your lens with LFD and the people that you have working for you?
Yeah, it's a tough situation in Nicaragua. I feel for my colleagues there, because it's rough, man. Rollers are they're craftsmen. You don't just find them. You don't just find a guy walking down the street and then you can become a roller. It takes months. It takes 6-7 months to train a roller, just to make basic robustos, toros, things like that. The highly skilled guys that can make Solomones and things like that. It just takes a very, very long time, and to lose that talent, that's a huge blow. On our side in Dominican Republic, thankfully, this is a very prosperous country, and people are happy. The Dominicans love their country. Dominicans want to be in their country, and so it's a beautiful thing. It's Dominican Republic is one of the few, I guess you could say, third world countries or Latin American countries, or it might be the only one that I know of that doesn't even have a communist party, right? That doesn't exist here. Nobody talks about that here. There's no interest in any kind of a communist revolution or any of that kind of thing, which, it's obviously it gives you a sense of security, because, we have a government that is supporting our industry. Our current president, Abinader, has even gone as far as to declare cigars a national cultural product, which gives it certain protections under the law, so they've recognized how important our industry is to the country. And so we have amazing support from our government. And the country's, it's growing, it's getting healthier financially. More people are taking interest in Dominican culture around the world. Is just the amount of tourists that are starting to come in more than ever. Dominican music is spreading all over the place. I mean, you could be in like Stockholm and you'll hear reggaeton and dembow and Dominican music, which it's kind of crazy, but the country it's going global, man.
Which is great to hear. And when you speak about Nicaragua and the challenges there, for the entire industry, though, certain people are very open and outspoken about how they try to treat their staff, what they try to offer as incentives for their staff. I'm thinking about Skip with Romacraft, who is very vocal about how he tries to take very good care of his people, overpay them, and create a work environment that is friendly and welcoming, so that people are engaged. And I can only think about the interview that we had years ago together with you and your father, and what I could sense in terms of the culture and the way you treat people, the respect for people you're working for you. But do you have any thoughts as to what the industry on a whole, on a greater level, could do better to create a more incentivizing environment for people to love and working in the industry and staying there rather than looking for an alternative elsewhere?
It's a complicated question, for example, like somewhere in Nicaragua, you're dealing with certain factors beyond salary and a comfortable working environment, right? It's a lot more complicated than that. So
That's a fair point, obviously. Yeah.
The solutions aren't aren't very black and white. And you know, I think there's issues that are beyond what manufacturers are, you know, can really do anything about, right? But you know, at the end of the day, man, it's about, you know, you taking care of your people, and you know, especially, you know, the people that you know are care about their work and care about, you know, the company they're working for. Well, you know, if they're taking care of you, you got to take care of them, right? You know, pay a fair wage. You know, I think, you know, if we're not the highest paying factory in the country, we're definitely amongst the very top of them, and we have been for a long time. Obviously, you know, with higher wages comes a higher expectation of the quality of your work. Um, but you know, if you take your work seriously and you're good at what you do, then LFD is an amazing place to work. It's a beautiful place to work. You know, we try to make this factory look beautiful. We make sure it's spick and span, it's clean, you know, and you know, we have a lot of employees. We've been around for 30 years. We have a lot of employees that have been with us for 25, 26, 27, 28 years, um, who have stuck with us, you know, and you know, we take care of people. And people come up to us and say, you know, I've got this issue, you know, I've got a medical issue, something happened with my mother, whatever. We work with them, you know, and whenever we can help, we help, you know. So that's really, it's all on a case by case basis, man. You have to do what you think is right and feasible for your company, but at the end of the day, the people working for you are human beings, and you know, they have needs and wants and desires, and you know, you gotta take care of them as best you can.
Yeah. Mace, I thought you had a thought, question, or comment on that. Chime in, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah, no, hey, Tony, great to meet you. Love,
And
love, love LFDs. And I think just on a personal note, I like the bolder, heavier cigars, and a lot of that sort of translates for me. So it's a huge fan, absolutely huge fan. Reinhard,
appreciate you, man.
another
Thank you,
great
brother.
show. I guess it's an interesting question that I had, and I've been thinking about it, but topics have been going on and it's been exciting. I didn't want to cut anybody off, but I just wanted to almost revert back to sort of the history of LFD and how you guys had no there was no preconception. Everything was just fresh, new. We're doing it our way. And if you were to look at it now, what is that sort of inherent LFD? Is there like a flavor profile that you would want people to associate with LFD? So you guys do a lot of different shapes, different cigars, different flavors, of course. But is there something that you would want people to always, that you could always identify and say, yeah, this is LFD, this is La Flor Dominicana? And just when you wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Sure. Well, I appreciate you, brother, and all the kind words and all your support, man. That's good man right there. As for the profile of LFD, well, we're much like you in that, you know, when I smoke a cigar, I like to know I'm smoking a cigar, right? I like a nice full-bodied smoke. Pops does as well. So that's 100% part of our identity. You know, LFD is known for making full-bodied cigars, and we always will, because that's what we like. As for flavor profile, it's I think there is absolutely a flavor profile. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that, you know, we're known for having notes of licorice or this or that or whatever. I'm not going to go that far, but you know, 75% of the tobacco we use comes from our farm, right? So we're one of the very few manufacturers in the world that, you know, we actually own and operate our own farm, and we own and operate our own factory, you know, so we have total control over what we're doing. And, you know, I could give our book of blends away to anybody. It really doesn't matter because you cannot recreate an LFD unless you have our tobacco from our farm. Okay, it's just impossible. You could maybe kind of come close within some kind of a range, but you can never recreate an LFD without the tobacco from our farm, which we don't sell, right? That's ours. So that farm is the identity of LFD. That soil, that little piece of land, that's ours. That's where our identity comes from. You know, the microclimate in La Canela, where we grow our tobacco, is conducive to, you know, very full-bodied, intense, aromatic, and flavorful tobacco. So that's why we're known for ligeros, right? For very full-bodied cigars, because where we grow our tobacco, it gives you the best of the best, the strongest of the strongest, you know, and our identity is built from that plot of land.
Makes perfect sense. And just on that point, then, I mean, I had sort of read up on that, and I guess, do you see the future of that changing, perhaps in terms of trying mixing different, is there tobacco that you would love to sort of experiment with beyond that and think that can add value and actually?
Well, like I said, so like 75% of what we use comes from our farm. So that other 25% comes from like 8 different countries. We buy from Nicaragua, from Ecuador, Mexico, Brazil, Cameroon, from all over the place, United States. And we then take those tobaccos and we blend it with ours, and we create new flavors, we create new cigars that way. And it's a beautiful thing because the fact that most of our tobacco is taken care of, right? We have our harvest, we know what's coming, we know what we have. We can be very picky over what we're buying on the open market, just because somebody has, I've got some tobacco from Nicaragua. Well, I'm not buying it just because I need tobacco from Nicaragua, right? I'm buying it because it's good tobacco from Nicaragua, right? This is the good stuff. I want this. All right, we'll take that. So it gives us an opportunity to be very picky over what we're buying on the open market. And I'm always open to something new. Distributors, there's plenty of tobacco distributors here, and they're always approaching with, hey, I've got something, a new seed or something from a new country or whatever. And I'm always game to try it. If we like it, then, we'll see if we could create something around it.
Sorry, just the last one on that point. Is there something, I guess, that you've either been experimenting with and you still haven't managed to get it right, but you're so keen to sort of have that blend, have that tobacco? Is there something there that's kind of exciting, or that you really want to and you're really working on it, or you've been trying to work on it and you had to give up, it just wasn't working, but you really liked it? Is there anything like that?
There have been times where we've had things that it's just interesting, but yeah, you can't ever get it to work. There was these. I remember when I first moved to Dominican Republic, like 11 years ago. There was these bales of tobacco that had been there for like over a decade, and I remember one day my dad was looking through the storage room where all the bales are, and he got kind of upset because he's like, what the hell are these things still doing here? I told you guys to get rid of this shit, like months ago, and it kind of sparked my curiosity. I was like, well, what is this, So I took a look at the bales. It sounded interesting. And I was like, all right, just hold off for like another couple of weeks. I want to like smoke this, see if I can blend it. Just don't throw it away just yet. We'll like pretend that we did, And then I tried to be blend. I just couldn't get it to work. And so we got rid of it eventually. But we've experimented with things on our own farm that haven't worked, and we've also got some new things that have worked that we will be incorporating into projects here pretty soon. As well as a couple new tobaccos that we've gotten our hands on recently that we're still kind of playing around with, and we'll see where it takes us and what we could do with it.
Amazing. Final question for me, and then I'll give the floor to somebody else that I can see hands raised. So I'm not going to hog you for the whole night. Just from your perspective, what are you smoking? I think I can guess what you're smoking, but out of the whole range, what is the cigar for you that sort of embodies your this is me all day, every day, if I could? What would that be?
Yeah. I have 2 cigars that I mainly smoke at this point. This is a special edition of Lennox that we created for the auction at Pro Cigar Festival earlier this year in February. It's a different size, and I upped the Hero a little bit, made it a little stronger. So this one's a 44 by 6.5. Actually, no, 44 by 7. Sorry. Those are my favorite sizes. I really love that, like 42 to 44 range, 6.25 to 7. That's really, like, I think those are the perfect cigars personally. So the cigar I smoke the most is the Andalusian Bull, the golden, the one we released as an NFT. That's kind of my daily smoke. And then every once in a while I pull one of these out too. Those are the 2 cigars I smoke the most.
Amazing. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks a lot.
Appreciate you.
Mace, many thanks for the questions, and let's jump over to Alex in Montenegro. Man, I should have called you in earlier. You know, with that wonderful backdrop, everybody would have been jealous like crazy. It's gotten darker in Montenegro already, but
Yeah, it's
we
super
can
dark now.
still get a glimpse or an idea of beautiful scenery.
Yeah, you were here what, a month ago, month and a half?
Yeah, man.
You enjoyed it.
Best
Tony, I have a
best place to visit. If you haven't been to Montenegro, get over there and see Alex at Casa de Puros.
Tony, I had a question. We've been talking for the past 5 months. Me and you been sending you messages on WhatsApp and everything. What are your projections on expanding to Montenegro, to other countries here in the Eastern Balkans? I know that Serbia and Croatia has LFDs. Do you have any projection time when you will be expanding?
We have a lot of pending requests from distributors around the world, trying to bring in LFD. I wish we could just open up every country and send them all the cigars they want. Unfortunately, it's not so simple. We are, hold on, well, a little bit of a power outage, but we're taking it little by little. I've got a list. I've got a list of everybody. I have not forgotten about anybody, but I've got a list of everybody, and we're going out. We're opening people up slowly, little by little, so that we just can't do everything at once. It's unfortunately not possible. There's not enough to go around, but I know you're pending. I know you're waiting, and I have not forgotten about you, brother. We will be in touch about it soon. If you're going to be at Inter Tobacco,
I will
stop by, say hi, have a smoke.
Okay. Just keep in mind we're a very small country, so we don't need that many cigars. Thank you.
I got to jump in here. You've been talking about Alex's beautiful backdrop, and my shirt matches. This says "Beach, please." Beach, please. Just wanted to throw that in there.
Where's the lawnmower? Where's the gardening work? Brian?
No gardening today. No lawnmowers. It's quiet and peaceful. And actually, I was listening to music from the Dominican Republic right now. If you mentioned it, Romeo Santos.
Oh
yeah. So it's good stuff. But yeah, I just all the way in Los Angeles. So like you said, I love music from that area. Anything calypso, from any Caribbean music. I don't really have a question. I just wanted to talk about how jealous I am of the beautiful beach where Alex is.
Last football season, I went to Florida State. I'm a Seminole, and I remember last football season, I was watching a game at my house, that a home game, so it was in Tallahassee, Florida. For those of you that don't know, Tallahassee, Florida is very much the South. It's very Southern American. It's there's not a lot of Latino influence in Tallahassee, Florida, right? And I remember in between plays at one point, I could hear the music from the stadium because the announcers weren't really talking, and they were playing dembow, which is like a very, very niche, like Dominican urban style of music, which when I realized what was happening, I was so mind blown that Dembo is playing at Doak Campbell Stadium in Tallahassee, Florida. I was saying, this country's going to take over the world, man. I just never imagined that happening, and it's just fascinating to me. The Dominican culture is it's running rampant around the world.
Yeah, you never know. Well, okay, that makes me think of something. I have a question then, because you were talking about tourism. Do you have anything? Because I know they have a festival, I think, every year. We had some guests on talking about that one time. Do you have anything, there in terms of like tours and, groups that can come and hang out, or do you participate in the festival? And what do you have going on there? And actually, that makes me think, piggyback sort of on what Mace was saying in terms of like what defines your cigars from like an external point of view in terms of like marketing and packaging and things. What would you say is kind of the message you want to get across, or kind of philosophically, what does your brand mean to the world?
All right, so So as for Pro Cigar Festival, yes, we're one of the 11 members of Pro Cigar. If you've never been to the festival, it's the coolest fucking week a cigar smoker will ever have. I could not recommend it more. You will learn more than you could ever memorize. You will leave with a duffel bag full of cigars, a full belly, and a hangover. You'll have a blast. I honestly could not recommend it more. So if you've never been to Pro Cigar, dude, do yourself a favor. Come hang out, party. It's an absolute blast. And as for the second part of your question, I think I can sum it up simply by saying no bullshit, man. There is no bullshit at LFD. Everything we say, everything you see is real. Our tobacco comes from our farm. Our cigars are rolled in our factory. My father and I, we live here, we work here, we're here overseeing everything. And we don't make anything up, you know. We're not creating a story. We're here making cigars that we love. You know, I love cigars, and I only like good cigars. So I couldn't work for a company that made bad cigars. I would have a very hard time with that, you know. So that's it, man. It's just no bullshit. We're here and we're really doing it, you know.
Cool. Thanks for the answers. Cheers.
Many thanks,
Thanks for
Brian.
the question.
Adrian,
All
over
right.
to you.
Hello, Raina. Hello, Antonio. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Adrian. Good to see you, brother.
Good to see you again.
Long time.
Yeah, I had a question. I'm interested about when you said about fermentation and aging. Do you think that when we do the fermentation, can we add other things than water, for example, juice or alcohol? Will it affect the taste? And on the aging, can we use, barrel rum aging, and will it help the taste, serve the taste? And how can we manage to conserve those flavors through the time after sending to other countries?
Sure. Well, yeah, absolutely. If you're adding things to the tobacco with flavors and aromas, it's certainly gonna, one way or another, it's gonna end up in the experience of that cigar. We don't have a lot of experience with that stuff. We don't do any kind of, whiskey or rum barrel aging. We don't add anything except water to our tobacco. So I might not be the best person to ask about this kind of thing, but I think there's plenty of examples of it in the industry and people that do it, and cigars that are very popular. So it's certainly feasible and it works. I have nothing personally against it. It's just not really our style. I just like cigars that taste like tobacco, and I think just all the different seed varieties and all the different soils and countries and places you can get tobacco. There's enough variety that you can create so many different flavors that are just naturally pure tobacco, and that's what we're going for. But for example, the rule at our factory is if we can't drink the water, then it doesn't touch the tobacco. And the water cooler that we have here in the office comes from the same filter as the water that we use for our fermentation piles, so we actually drink the water that we're using on our tobacco, and that's our rule, and that will never change.
Okay, thank you so much for the answer, and
problem,
thank you very much for the good cigar.
Enjoy.
Well, since we properly spoke about the court case about Judge Mehta and all the regulatory and legal aspects, let's bring in our lawyer in residence, Macy. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on all of this.
Yeah, man.
First of all, they said, CRA board members, I've been saying for years, let me be Michael Edney's understudy. I will do a bunch of free legal work. for the CRA. It would be my pleasure. I can save you money. I mean, let Edney, let Steptoe Johnson, great law firm, by the way, really amazing law firm, just brilliant lawyers. I'm from Phoenix, and Steptoe was known as where all the Stanford people went, all that. So I understand you need them on top, but Macy Hansen, that name's there at gmail.com. I would love to do Drew Newman. I know you get this. I would love to do the grunt work and save a lot of legal bills for the CRA, because I know Edney's got associates working on that. Anyway, so that is out there. What a win. I mean, sorry for the, I'm going through puberty, hope to get through it one day, but maybe too many cigars. No, that's not true. But what a win. And to all of those that, there's so many in the industry, it can't be done. You can't beat the tobacco industry. First of all, those facts are different. What the cigarette companies did, all that other stuff was one thing you got to learn about the court case is judges, especially in the federal level, they're real deal judges. They look at the facts. Every case is different. So what happened in the past with the different industry, and that's our whole point, that has no bearing on this. So for those like Rocky Patel, like your family, Fuente, and we're going to name some names in a second, and is it that Macy's, thank you, because the names do need to be named, the 10 it was such a reasonable position. And I believe it was the PCA that actually made the public comment that what happens, the FDA basically ignored a comment that I believe it was the PCA submitted saying, hey, there's no evidence to what you're doing. You're treating us like cigarettes. That was completely ignored by the FDA. And it was that trip up that caused this victory, to make it simple. So yes, the CRA funded it, and absolutely hats off to the CRA for, and Charlie Minato wrote about this. I've been trying to get that backstory for years in the funding. Really interesting stuff there. You got Michael Edney on a flat fee, smartest thing ever. Always get lawyers on a flat fee. Never let, another point to anyone listening there. Drew Newman, never let the CRA do anything other than a flat fee ever again. And Rocky, your lawyer, Rocky. So just what a great win, but and credit to the PCA for submitting the comment that led to that victory. And just real, for folks that don't know the backstory, I mean, this was, a lot of companies did not want to make this argument. They did not want to pay for this briefing. And so this was just a home run. And I mean, not enough credit. I mean, this is the biggest thing that's happened in 20, 30 years. I mean, we really shouldn't be talking about anything else. And we should be saying, what have we learned from this? How do we go forward? Because this is a case study on what to do. And there are so many lessons to be learned. But just first of all, I mean, you all should go out and buy CRA Freedom Pack samplers. That largely has funded this. And I'm going to name the 10 companies because I believe in naming names, the companies of greatness, family companies, I believe all of them, that are funded the CRA, that give to the Freedom Packs. Arturo Fuente, Ashton, J.C. Newman, La Flora Dominicana, my father, and I'll give Pete Johnson credit on that one, to Tatuaje, Oliva, Padron, Rocky Patel, and I'm sorry, that's from the CRA if I left any of the 10 out that have contributed.
Alec Bradley was
Alec Bradley, I'm sorry.
I hope, they've sold their company since, but they were there with us the whole way.
Absolutely. So absolute credit to them. And I believe all cigar consumers should make the point to prioritize buying those 10 company cigars. I certainly am going to do it. And let me just say this is me speaking. Shame on the big companies, the publicly held companies that did not fund this. Shame, shame, shame on you. Shame on all these free riders that benefit from this immensely. And I hope they learn from this. I hope they change their ways. And that's all I got to say about that. It's indefensible. Another point I want to make is user fees. I heard Rocky Patel on the Cigar Authority podcast talk about how I think it's 10 or 15 million, whatever it is, millions of dollars in user fees that FDA is illegally collected. Those should go back. And I want to say as a consumer, no one's talking about consumers getting their money back. So I believe this is what should happen to the user fees. First, all you good guys, the 10 companies, the 10 great ones, the 10 heroes, you should get your legal fees refunded first. That should come off the top. After that, I believe there should be discounts to consumers, or somehow find a way to pass that on. Maybe figure out a way to tie that in with the CRA, where if you join the CRA, you get a special user fee FDA discount, and we get consumers in that. I think there are some really interesting things that can be done on that end. But because ultimately consumers, we paid the user fees too, so and higher prices. So please don't forget about us, because it's a lot of money. And finally, my question, that's a lot, but I do have a question about DR versus Nicaragua and immigration issues in Nicaragua, but you know what? I think that's enough, and I just want to say, whoa, congratulations. Congratulations to you, your father. I mean this sincerely. This was a win that I'm just trying. I mean, I'm really speechless, but I basically am. And just the balls it took and the brains that it took to see this through. And people, let me tell you, unless you're putting millions of dollars into litigation and gambling on this stuff, I mean, it just talk about a poker match. So just, just you wrote the checks, you donated the cigars, and we all just I thank you. And when we have new cigars coming out without predication and all this other stuff, and just keep it up. And I hope we really learn lessons on this. And to everyone out there, keep posting public every time they pass these proposed regulations. Keep posting the comments, gunk up the wheels. That gives the lawyers the bullets to do the things like Edney and Steptoe Johnson did here. Thank you.
Well, Macy, first off, I appreciate the enthusiasm, man. That's awesome. And you're right. This win we can't say enough about it. I mean, this is astronomically huge for the cigar business. And like I said, tobacco doesn't win. Tobacco is the target. It's the one that politicians they feel very free to step all over, and nobody cares because nobody's putting themselves out there to defend tobacco. It's just not worth it for politicians for a number of reasons. But if you're serious about your offer, you shoot me an email and I'll see what we could do. Antonio at lfdcigars.com. That's my email address, and yeah, reach out to me. We'll see what we could do. As for the idea you proposed with the user fees, it's an interesting one. Certainly something we could take a look at. I do think though that a lot of those user fees, if we manage to recover them, will be reinvested into CRA. Like I said, this is the time to build the war chest for whatever battles are to come. Just because we won this doesn't mean we're not still dealing with tons of issues on local and state levels. And the FDA sooner or later is going to come back, right? So we have to be prepared for it.
That reinvestment idea is a really good one. That's a great idea, and that would not be scored. That would actually be probably the best use for I like that idea a lot. Thank you.
No problem, brother.
Macy, well, thanks for the enthusiasm. If all cigar enthusiasts were as enthusiastic, literally, about that, we'd be in a good place, man. Thanks for chiming in. Ryan, over to you. Great to see you, brother.
Hey, Ryan.
Hey, how's it going?
Doing all right, brother. Yourself?
Good, bro. All good. How's it going? Everything's over? No, not anymore. Well, I'm kind of lying. Yes, I was on vacation. I came back about a week ago, and I leave
So
tomorrow
you
to
just set up
Beirut.
the auto reply on your email.
Yeah,
You
I
wanted
need to
them out of it.
Okay, you got me there. I need to deactivate that. And then the reason why I did not activate it yet is I head out to Beirut tomorrow. I have meetings all day tomorrow. But then I said, since I'm there, I might as well enjoy the beauty of the mountains. My brother-in-law lives up in the mountains, so I'm going to chill with them for a couple of days. So that's why I kept that on. So
Yeah.
listen, obviously, it's always a pleasure to see you. And well, I have to start by thanking you for making us like kind of movie stars. Apparently, we're going to be coming up in this in this filmed documentary you got us into. Which was a lot of fun, by the way, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah, man.
Um,
Yeah, man. Looking forward to it.
yeah, likewise. I can't wait to see it. What I wanted to tell you is something that's very interesting is you know how much I love the quality of Dominican tobacco. You know how much I love the tobacco that comes out of the LFD farm. And you remember the unfortunate incident where we received a whole bunch of cigars that were kind of destroyed and all of that stuff. And I couldn't get my hands to throw that away. I was like, it is impossible that I'm going to throw that away. I mean, you have an Andalusian bull cut in half or something. I'm like, I can't see myself throwing that away. I won't sleep that night or several nights. So what I did was I did two experiments. The first experiment was use that tobacco, just sort of crunch it and use that tobacco in my pipe. And dude,
Very cool.
I'm telling you,
That's what I thought you were going for.
I was so well. The first one was the normal tobacco as is. The second one is when I put the honey and the molasses and all of that stuff, and I started wanting to give it a bit of your typical tobacco kind of thing, which was also good. But interestingly enough, the natural flavors when I put it in my pipe was just simply phenomenal. And
That's cool.
just an idea.
That's very interesting.
Just an idea for the future when you're like, what do we do with those tobacco, those bales? Never throw away bales, buddy. You have amazing tobacco. Turn it into like pipe tobacco. And there you go.
Blends.
Well, everything. I mean, because we had a big selection. I had a big selection of them, and I'm still going through them, and it's been just amazing. And now I kind of blend them together. So, in a very twisted manner, thank you for making that experience possible. Albeit none of us hoped for it to happen that way, but yeah. So that was great.
A little backstory. Wright is our importer and distributor in Dubai, and some months ago we sent him an order. For some reason, the shipping company took it upon themselves to take a different route from the one we had agreed to, and they went through Miami, which means customs had a field day with the cigars, just opened up boxes, ripped everything apart. It was an absolute shame, damaged tons of product, and we're still. I've made a lot of headway with the airline about getting compensated for that. So I will let you know as soon as that happens, and we will get our money back. Right.
My team has a video of me opening these boxes when I received the shipment. And I tell you, I was crying like a 5-year-old. I just could not fucking believe it. But anyway, it's all good. It's all good. You got to see the bright side out of everything, and you learn in the process. Yeah. But yeah, it's always good to see you. The cigars are phenomenal. And I have nothing to say but to thank you. And yes, congratulations. By the way, it's amazing, if I may talk about the winning. It's amazing how in our part of the world, a lot of people did not know about it. But those who knew were coming into our shop and they're like, wait, what does that mean? Had we not won, and they're using the we reference, had we not won, what would that mean? And now that we won, what does that mean? And all of that stuff. So there was a huge educational component that we were obviously very happy and proud to give. So congratulations to everybody, really.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. And always a pleasure to see you, man. Thanks for being here.
The pleasure is mine, sir.
Tony, before we wrap things up for today, great conversation today. Great time here at the lounge. Thanks for your time, for all these answers and insights. You briefly this time touched upon inspiration. We know that you have, you know, you're involved in so many different things. We spoke about innovation, but you're big into arts and different cultural things that eventually, you know, inspire what you dream up, what you put into your cigars and what you put on the outside into the packaging and everything. Is there a particular concept or a hobby or a field of interest way outside of cigars and anything that we have mentioned today that kind of sparked your interest, or where you feel this could at some point someday become like a key component or an inspiration for a great cigar or a great line that you could see somewhere on the horizon?
Hmm. That's a good question. I think, I've always been very interested in literature. I study a lot of that in college and film and music. My first dream in life was to be a rock star. I played bass and drums, a couple different instruments. Yeah, I think I'm always looking to things like that for inspiration, and I will continue to do so. Yeah, I mean, something as crazy as the blockchain, right? Which is a little side interest, ended up being a cigar. So sure, there's any number of ways that ideas can come about, and I'm open to all of them. I think a cigar should always have a good story behind it. A cigar shouldn't exist just to exist. There should be a story. It should be saying something. That's part of the experience in my eyes. So always looking at something deeper than just leaves that you set on fire with a pretty band on it, right? We're looking for a story. We're looking for something more symbolic.
And I guess also similar to what you mentioned earlier, it's probably when you're looking for inspiration the least where you can find it the most, and you never know where it hits you from, right?
Exactly.
Tony, it was wonderful to have you at the Light 'em Up Lounge. Thank you so much for your time, for your enthusiasm, for your great work and your great contribution. Please send all my love to your family, to your father. It was great catching up with both of you in Vegas just a few weeks ago. And I can't wait to sit down with you and share a cigar again. But it's been an absolute privilege and pleasure to have you at the lounge and to share this wonderful evening with you. Many thanks.
It's the pleasure's all mine, my friend. Thank you for inviting me, and thanks to all you gents for hanging out and spending time, and for all the awesome questions and conversation. It's been fun, man. Thanks to all of you.
Always. Tony, many thanks. Thanks for everybody joining us today. Keep them lit up. Enjoy great cigars, and we'll see you all next week here, same time, same station at the Light 'em Up Lounge. Cheers, everybody. Good night. Bye-bye.